What's up, y'all? It's your girl Jazz, aka the Story Maestro, and I want to talk to you guys about outlining. A few months ago, I created a TikTok where I showed you my specific outline for my novel, and I got a lot of likes and favorites for that. So I was just like, maybe I should do one that's a little bit more extended to go a little bit more in depth so that you can follow me on my thought process. So when it comes to outlining, I feel like I have heard a lot more pushback than acceptance for outlining, which, not saying that, people are just so reluctant to it, but I think that I want to say stigma behind it is that it's going to hinder your creativity rather than help it. And in my opinion, it's going to help you because it's going to help you stay on track. For me personally, my outline is based on the Save the Cat method coupled with additional details and summarizing chapters. So, and if we stay at the Save the Cat method, you have 15 beats. If I'm trying to get from one beat to the next, and then I know those details that happen in between because that's how I do it, while I'm writing those beats out, if I kind of get stuck, I at least have something in the back of my mind telling me you're trying to get here. Or, hey, here's the next detail. Just in case I get stuck. Because it's not to say this is what's supposed to happen in your story and that's it. False. Because I wrote a whole outline and I can tell you my outline is very different. Not very different, but very different from what I have in my story now. I think that if you go into an outline with the idea that it's going to help you to stay on track, it's going to help you to get started and be able to finish, then you'll have more hope for why you're using your outline and be more encouraged to use an outline. Again, it doesn't work for everybody, but it can, and it doesn't have to be a hindrance. It doesn't have to have that stigma behind it that, hey, this is really going to mess up my creative flow. So let's dive into my specific outline a little more. Again, if I'm using the Save the Cat method, that's broken into 3 acts altogether. You got the first, second, and third act, but just like the other 3-act structure, it has things in between. Now, the other 3-act structure, I used to try to use that, and it never worked for me because it's like, okay, this is exposition, the climax, the resolution, the falling something. Listen, it didn't work for me, and I was just like, yuck. The only part that I liked is that it was split up into the 3 acts. It did nothing else for me except for say, hey, there's something that needs to go in those 3 acts. Now, I could just be an overly detailed person. I do have a project management background, so that is probably why I am like, I need extra detail as much as possible. Moving forward. So now that I have the 3 acts, we're going to break that down more into the 15 beats. The 15 beats in the Save the Cat method are basically identifiers or markers for they are identifiers or markers for occurrences that need to take place at certain points of your story. And the beautiful part about the Save the Cat method is truly beginner friendly. If you buy the book, or you can even go online and download a free Save the Cat method pamphlet, and it's going to give you a description of what that beat means. So if you have, I think the first beat is opening image. Opening image is literally draw me a picture of what's going on. Introduce your first character or introduce your MC. There you go right there. Already you are off to a great start. Now, for me, because I have something in between that, my brain goes to here, opening image, but now I'm already a step ahead. First beat, second beat. How am I going to get to the second beat? Again, I told you guys I have things in between that, so I'm like, there got to be some occurrences that's happening. I typically like to think of a book like a series, because that's where a lot of our favorite shows come from, right? We got You, Pretty Little Liars. What else do we have? Vampire Diaries. I'm trying to think of some Black shows. Are there any Black shows based on a book? I'm gonna be real with you. I can only think of black books that were made into movies. So y'all put me on game and let me know what Black books have been turned into Black series. Lovecraft Country. I have not watched that series and I need to, but boom, there's one. Nonetheless, okay, back focus. So my point is I typically look at I try to structure like my chapters as like episodes, because you don't have an episode where it's like something happens here and something happened at the very, very last minute of the story. No, something's happening between that episode. That's why we're still hooked in. So because you have that, now you have to add the extra detail in there. And it helped me because now I have this clump of information that I can summarize now into a chapter. And so in those beats is where you can truly maintain your creativity. Again, it seems to have a bad stigma of, oh, it's going to hinder my creativity, when in actuality it's not. So if you look at it in the way of, okay, I use these beats as markers and what I know I need to hit on, but really just go ahead and let your creative juices flow in between those, you still have enough space to get stuff done. Because, for instance, say that your outline is 5,000 words and say that your goal is 95,000 words. You still have 90,000 words to really change that story. So, or bring it to whatever you want to. Because again, my story did not stick heavy to the outline. Like I had a few things where I'm like, okay, that's supposed to happen, that's supposed to happen. But then after a while, my mind just took off and that outline was kind of like, oh yeah, I do have an outline. So I did go back to it very often is what I'm trying to say. But I'm also trying to encourage, if you're trying to start, that is a great place to start. Do not start with just an idea of a scene, because guess what? You're only going to write that scene. Now, not to say that it can't go anywhere, but sometimes it doesn't. Like for me personally, I have so many chapters of books that I started, like just one chapter, and don't know where else to take the book. Because it's like, well, what was I trying to do with this book? What was my premise? What was my theme? What was my plot? Did I have a trope that I even wanted to? Nothing. So if you have something to go off of, it can take you a long way. And I mean, maybe even a trope is an outline and you just don't know it. Because if you know it's going to be friends to enemies, guess what? You know that these two people need to hate each other and then fall in love. Just saying. If it's rags to riches, somebody's broke and they about to get some money. How are you going to do that? That is, I mean, if in my opinion, that's still something like an outline, because you have an idea of something. To go into something without an idea at all, to just go into it and not know what you want to do with it, I think sets you up for failure to not execute your book properly or to get writer's block sooner than you would like to. Me having an outline kept me from having writer's block. If you want to take my route, if you want to get from one beat to the next, you need those 1 to 2 occurrences. What are they going to be? What exactly is it that's going to happen that's going to help you get to that beat? Because it can't just jumpstart and just suddenly something happens. Something has to transpire. And if you have a hold on that, if you have an idea, write it down. It's far too easy to forget something than to remember it, especially if you're a creative like me. I have woke up with great ideas and I'm like, oh, let me write that down. Can't remember it. Right before I go to sleep, brilliant idea. I'll write it down in the morning. Wake up. Dang, what was that idea? It's far too many things that can just pop up and then for you to, and you can easily forget. So I highly encourage to just do that just so it can help you. I think what would help a lot as well is to think of it as you're just writing your story anyway, just in very, very short form. Because I think when we think about outlines, it seems very meticulous and it takes us back to school and like academics in a way where you're writing a paper on something, a very researched, like tedious essay, when really it's like, no, this is mine. I'm about to bring this to life. That makes all the more difference. And again, for me, I think I like to just see stuff. I like to see it out in the open. I like to, bring it together like a web, but to just not be, for me to not be able to see it doesn't help me. And some people, to not write it down somewhere, it doesn't help them. But if you are that person that's interested in outlining, this will help you tremendously. And I would really like to know what you guys have been doing in general to help you with your story, or where do you get stuck? When are the main moments where you're like, yo, this is not helping. Yo, this is not exactly what I needed, and I need this actually. So drop it in the comments. Let me know. I would love to help. I would love to even like us have a discussion one day, maybe live or something, and just really get somewhere with, hey, this is how we can figure this out. And again, now that we've got those two, bring it down to the extra details. Those tiny details can be something like foreshadowing, because it's kind of like that Chekhov's gun thing. You find if there's a gun, then eventually it's going to be used, or something along those lines. Now, again, foreshadowing. If we get to a point that one little thing can show up later, but it could feel like a miscellaneous detail in the moment, but the moment that it clicks for your audience is going to be like, and that's a thing that's going to that's going to take their breath away. It's going to draw them in, because they're like, oh my God, is he going to use it? How's it going to execute this? Can this work for this? You want to keep your audience captivated. And I think those little details are the times where you're like, I'll drop these little breadcrumbs to see if they pick them up. And again, those breadcrumbs, guess what? They lead back to those 1 to 2 occurrences. And guess what? Those 1 to 2 occurrences, you hit those beats. You're able to get from one beat to the next. You're able to connect it all, because again, to connect it all, to be able to foreshadow, to be able to create a story to captivate your audience is what's going to make them come back. You do not want to create a story that doesn't make sense. You do not want to just write just to be writing. And I think that sometimes I feel like that's what I'm doing with pantsing, because sometimes it works, but then sometimes you'll probably go back and be like, that's not it. And that's okay. Our first draft is our roughest draft, and it'll never be perfect. Please keep that in mind. Random thought, random tip, bonus tip. Your first draft will never be great. And if it is, kudos to you, but mine are not, and that is okay. All right, y'all, I hope this video is what you needed. Please drop something in the comments. Let me know what your thoughts are, how you outline your novel, how you don't outline your novel, how you go about writing your novel. This is an open space. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. I drop videos every Tuesday. I'll see you guys soon.